This series looks at the disruptions and societal shift that started in the 16th century, the last time Pluto was in the final degrees of Capricorn and early degrees of Aquarius, while Neptune also transited Aquarius and Pisces. Astronomers had yet to discover these two planets. Yet when Pluto hit 27 degrees, the power and authority of the Roman Catholic Church in Europe was challenged by Martin Luther's call for reformation. The church wasn't overthrown immediately or completely. A cultural shift happened over many years. It came about through reform efforts, theological debate, the dismantling of old institutions and laws, and the creation of new. All of this was accompanied by fighting and wars as the impact of new ideas reverberated throughout the world during this tumultuous century. These are the stories of how seismic astrological events affected human events during this powerful paradigm shift. On July 29, 1565, Mary, Queen of Scots, married her first cousin, Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley. Their whirlwind romance and impulsive marriage was cause for concern for the English Queen Elizabeth I. Darnley and the Scottish Queen both descended from Margaret Tudor, the sister of King Henry VIII, Queen Elizabeth's father. Mary and Darnley were first cousins. Each had direct claim to the English throne, and both represented hope for Catholic Europe. Mary, of course, was Catholic, and Darnley was from the English Catholic Lennox family. Their child, should they have one, would have a strong claim to the English throne that Catholic powers within Europe might have recognized as more legitimate than the Protestant Elizabeth's right. This wasn't the first time the Scottish Queen gave her royal cousin cause for concern. Mary's first husband had been the young French King Francis II, but Mary was widowed in 1560. Queen Mary was culturally French, having been raised by her mother, Mary of Guise, daughter of one of the most powerful French and devoutly Catholic families. With Mary, Queen of Scots' impulsive second marriage, she embarked on a disruptive new path that added fuel to existing tensions, yet ultimately this rash decision led to the union of England with Scotland. Queen Mary and Henry Stuart's marriage was a flashpoint revealing tensions between powerful forces in Reformation Europe. During this time, the structure and power of the Roman Catholic Church was contested at every level, by religious leaders, kings, princes, and common people. Prior to Martin Luther's 1517 protest against the irregularities of the Roman Catholic Church, the Church was the wealthiest property owner within Europe. With its authority under attack, its power splintered. Monarchs rose to claim or protect its privilege, and competition between states erupted into wars. Protestant states organized and rose to rival the power of the Roman Catholic Church, which in turn poured its money and support behind the most loyal Catholic monarchs. By 1565, Europe was well into a new era of fighting, built upon the foundation of reinvigorated ideas about appropriate religious belief that were being taught in new institutions and spread through a variety of information technologies. The Pluto-Aquarius children of the original reformers had been raised with innovative beliefs formulated out of the broken religious structures of their parents' era, and they worked to create worlds that resembled their own conception of an enlightened spiritual community. But their competing, vibrant visions came into conflict, especially when enthusiasm for dreams led people to act without consideration of laws and tradition. When the teenage Queen of Scotland entered her first marriage to the young French king in 1559, it was a political move meant to elevate Scottish interests above those of its bordering nation, England. France had the backing of the Roman Catholic Church. England, on the other hand, was governed by Mary's cousin, Elizabeth, who was Protestant and head of the Church of England. But as an unmarried queen, Catholic Europe held out hope that she might reconcile with the Church through marriage. Scotland became less threatening to England when Mary, Queen of Scots, was widowed. pressure eased a bit for the still unmarried and childless Queen Elizabeth, who was in her early 30s and had recently decided to take a break from entertaining marriage proposals. Upon the sudden marriage of Mary and Darnley, the stability of Elizabeth's reign became a little less certain. Queen Elizabeth was a shrewd politician, cultivating respect at court, making public efforts to appeal to her subjects, and keeping her rivals on their toes. She was both an innovator and also a strong monarch with a low tolerance for anyone's disregard for Tudor family tradition. By 1565, Elizabeth had potential enemies on every side, and she was not in the mood to tolerate insubordination from her own cousins. Tradition dictated that Lord Darnley, an English-born aristocrat and subject of the English Queen, should have sought Elizabeth's approval before marrying, especially when his fiancée was the direct heir to the throne. She wasn't the only person who took offense at the passionate and impulsive union. Queen Mary and Lord Darnley risked papal displeasure. As first cousins, their marriage should have waited for a special dispensation from the Pope. And, as if that weren't enough, Mary and Henry's union stirred up more anger amongst the powerful Protestant Scottish lords, who took this as an occasion to openly rebel. With these stressors surrounding their union, it wasn't long before the former lovers turned into enemies, though not before the future King James I of England was conceived. Eventually, Mary and Henry took care of Elizabeth's immediate concerns by turning on each other in very public and violent ways. Soon, Henry ended his life assassinated at the age of 21. Reckless attachment to religious sides bore no fruit by 1565. Religious beliefs had hardened as hopes of religious reconciliation faded permanently into the past. A new era for the Roman Catholic Church began with the 1563 religious renovation at the end of the Council of Trent, which had convened 20 years earlier in response to Protestant criticism. This council produced a strategic Catholic response. It prompted institutions meant to counteract Protestant heresy, such as the Roman Inquisition, established in 1542, and the Society of Jesus, or Jesuit order, which had sworn personal allegiance to the Pope and was officially recognized by him in 1540. At that point, reconciliation amongst European Christians became impossible. Pope Pius IV issued many decrees, affirming every doctrine questioned by Protestants. With sides made firmer in beliefs and supported by new structures, religious wars broke out in France and threatened to spill out into the rest of Europe and the wider world. As head of the Church of England, Elizabeth I led her own efforts to solidify Anglican religious belief and practices. She introduced the new 1552 prayer book and a set of 39 articles for Anglican practice issued in 1562. But as she solidified the foundation of the English Church, she was always vulnerable to attack from Counter-reformation forces, especially after 1563 and the conclusion of the Council of Trent. This history demonstrates how astrological transits similar to a cycle we are just entering played out in 16th century Europe. These events reveal also how individuals operated within larger astrological influences. Was the marriage of Henry Lord Darnley to Mary, Queen of Scots, a story of star-crossed lovers, or a tale of two rebellious young adults caught up in fantasies of flouting convention and defying spiritual expectations? With the North Node in Sagittarius at the time of their marriage, they may have seemed as if they were on track, pursuing the exuberance of a Jupiterian path and blazing a new trail towards a less constricted world. That is, until we remember these two were already family before marriage. Mary had followed her curiosity and returned home to marry a man because she loved him, not thinking of her own North Node in Aquarius, which would have wanted her to broaden her outlook and consider actions that would bring together her wider, fractured community. Meanwhile, Queen Elizabeth followed the path of her own opposing natal node in Leo as she asserted her royal prerogative and moved within England to uphold the foundational traditions that supported her own power. Navigating the mutable seas of Pluto and Pisces required flexibility, ingenuity, and strength, all skills Elizabeth perfected during her time as queen. The slightly confusing, sometimes bizarre, and always unexpected events of the 1560s were the first real-world experiments that began to reveal the hazy possibilities behind the emerging structures of this new post-Reformation world.